In these wild times, right now, today, no matter if this is being listened to as we release it or a year down the road, might be a really great time for you to refocus on what it was that made you start traveling in the first place. So today, we're going to talk about refocusing on why you started traveling, because we think this is one of those episodes that every so often you need to re-examine what it is that you're doing, this crazy, wacky industry career that you've chosen. And we're going to talk about it today on Travel Evolved. Welcome to Travel Evolved. I am your host, Mark Holloway. I guess you call it a host. I don't know what I am. I'm the talking head that is doing my best to try to get you guys to hear things that I think you've never heard before. And again, there's a lot of people on social media, a lot of recruiters from our side of the business. What there isn't a lot of, there's some credentialing people, I've seen it here and there, but lately I haven't seen barely anybody on social media. There's not a lot of input from our standpoint. And like I've always said on Travel Evolved, when there is input, it's oftentimes, look how great our company is, and this is why all the reasons you should go to work for us, as opposed to the other hundreds of companies that do exactly the same thing that we do in the exact same manner in which we do them. That's our weird industry, and it is weird. And I guess I'm fortunate enough to have been around in the majority of this industry, if you can believe that. This industry is not that old. It's not that long of a profession as far as part of being a healthcare professional. So I guess I'm dating myself. Obviously, I always do, but I've been around for most of this industry's existence, which is kind of weird to think about. There's been thousands and thousands of travelers that have retired since I've gotten my teeth sharpened in this business. I guess where I'm going with this is that it's really unusual for somebody to want to educate travelers. I've said this before, and I don't mean this to sound, I guess, too negative, but our industry does kind of rely upon ignorance on a traveler standpoint, and more of you are becoming less and less ignorant. And that sounds very predatory, and I mean that specifically to sound that way because I've seen it happen. I see it almost every day when someone says, hey, I want you to look at this contract. It blows me away because I don't understand why some agencies are, I guess, they either are not interested in repeat business or they're so big that they don't care because it's a revolving door and they're preying upon newer travelers, not necessarily younger, but just people that haven't been traveling that long that haven't really thought about, all the nuances as to what makes each agency unique. If there really are many things that makes each agency unique. And I'm just beating up our industry. It is. I've never seen or heard of an industry like ours where literally hundreds of companies that hold the exact same contracts do their best to differentiate themselves from every other company that holds the same contract by claiming that somehow their holding of that contract is magically different than the other 500, 400 companies that have the exact same contract at potentially better or maybe worse, weekly pay rates. It's just crazy to me. And you guys are all starting to get it. This season, in season 2, we are going to focus a lot about getting you to the top of the pile. That's kind of the focus of season 2, is really trying to elevate your game and evolving your travel game so that you're chosen from people that aren't watching Travel Evolved. I hate to say it that way, but that's the truth. We're trying to give you guys a little bit different perspective that hopefully will allow you to be smarter, to be a little more discerning of the jobs you're taking, the assignments you're going to, the facilities you're working with, and the agencies you're working through. in this season. So that's kind of, I noticed kind of a little bit of our theme for this second season. And again, all these were organized over a year ago, if you can believe that. So this is kind of crazy because I think originally we were going to open up this season 2 with this episode, but we had Steve on last time. Great episode. It's going through the roof. People really like that. I knew you guys would like Steve because he's just that kind of guy. So instead of opening it with this one, we decided to open it with a live interview, which I think was really good and excellent timing. So at any rate, this is kind of timely because it's really weird. We thought about this over a year ago that let's kind of get people refocused. And I think it's kind of crazy because a year ago, while we were in the middle of some chaos and some changes and some unique times, to say the least, in our industry, we're right smack in the middle of, I think, when things were kind of at their best, if that makes sense, a year ago. The scariness, if there was such a thing, of taking high-paying assignments was subsiding quite a bit because there was a lot of PPEs and a lot of things in place that were help protecting travelers, but the money was still there. And it was kind of before, in my opinion, the big, huge, thrush, if you will, of new travelers getting in the industry. So it was kind of great for a lot of you out there. You were making crazy money. I think many of you would admit that the money you were making was not unjustified, but definitely you weren't complaining, right? There wasn't a lot for many of you. I should say for all of you. But for many of you, the amount of money you were making was better than the risks and the things that all of you guys do week in, week out, day in, day out to be a traveler. There's a lot of sacrifices you guys make, and it doesn't go unnoticed by me. I think by most people on our side of the industry. But that period of time, I think, it kind of almost went the other way, where it felt, to a lot of what you guys were telling me, and I guess I would agree, that it was the first time in our industry's history that you were making more money than maybe, I don't want to say you should have, because that sounds really terrible, because I don't believe that. You finally were making money and then some based upon the sacrifices that you guys make all the time. Now we're kind of getting back to the point where it seems like things are definitely decreasing as far as the bill rates go, which I'm assuming, like I've said many times on Travel Evolved, means that the pay rates are going down probably more than the bill rates are going down, if that makes sense. I said a few weeks ago it's going to be interesting to see how some of these new agencies that jumped in during these crazy times would adapt and would, I guess, figure out how to survive when their huge margins became a little bit more apparent to the average traveler. So I haven't really had a lot of examples of that thrown at me recently, but I think it's coming for sure. What we're seeing, though, definitely is, I guess, more of a normalization of supply and demand. And that means that, I'm still seeing bill rates that I wouldn't have dreamt I would see back in 2018 and early 2019, or almost 2019. I just didn't ever think I didn't think I'd be in the industry when I'd see $150, $170 bill rates consistently, which I am still, by the way, seeing as of the recording of this episode, which is wild to me. So I remember that one of our vendors one time reached out to me because they had a nurse anesthetist position. They had no idea what the bill rate should have been. And of course, this was, maybe 15 years ago. And I remember thinking at the time it would be somewhere around $100 an hour, which seemed like such a huge amount of money for a hospital to have to decide they wanted to pay. And they did. To think now that we were seeing double that for many specialties in both allied and nursing is again, surprising and crazy. And we all knew, for anybody that's been in the industry a long time, most of you guys knew this wasn't going to stay forever. Now, I said on a different podcast I did previous to this one, and I'll stick by that I do think things are going to remain higher for a long time. I think the one thing that all this did was made hospitals realize that they're going to have to pay a little bit more for a good, solid traveler to do his or her job in either allied or nursing in order for them to want to stay at their facility. We still are seeing a lot of the, not local, but people are kind of limited to where they can go. And I've seen that recently where some areas of the country are really dropping their rates, even like pre-pandemic rates. I've seen recently as low as extensions being offered at $70. I've heard that from not only people I've seen personally and firsthand, but also with other companies. $30, $40 differences in places that were already not the highest paying. And now they're back down to this. I'm going, wow, they're going to really have trouble. I think they're doing what they can to try to, I don't know, make up financially or just push the envelope as far as they're going to see what they're going to get. And we're seeing it. It's kind of interesting. I mean, the whole country is experiencing it, but it's just wild. So at any rate, I just wanted to kind of share that I love the timing of this episode because I really do think it's a really wonderful time for many of you to refocus on why you started traveling. And if the answer was simply, in my opinion, because of the insane amount of money you could make, it may be time for you to decide that it's not time to be in traveling anymore. I'm just going to say that out there and put that out there honestly, because I've said that many times, that this may not be for you. This may not continue to be for you. You may have been able to make crazy money and justify the sacrifices you were making a year ago, even a few months ago. And right now it may not make sense. And that's why I think this episode is good to start really focusing on. If it was for that, and you've got some compelling reasons why you need to make, X amount of dollars a week and you're not seeing it out there and you don't believe it's going to come back and be that consistently, then it probably is time for you to reevaluate whether or not you want to be a traveler. And there's nothing wrong with that. You've got an amazing career. It doesn't have to be always in traveling. And for those of you that are dedicated and have really fallen in love or remain to be in love with the traveling aspect of being a healthcare professional, then this is the episode for you, because I just want you guys to really kind of rethink about what it is that drove you in the first place. So, as always, I'll do my housekeeping and tell you guys I really appreciate the upswing. Again, I knew we had to take a little bit of a break and slow down toward the end of last season and then now. And that's been mainly for business reasons. Personally, it's just been crazy for me too. A lot going on. I mean, really from, like I say, my personal life to how much time is being dedicated to my actual job. It's been really wild. So I'm doing the best I can, and I think you'll see I'm going to do a little bit better and keep these consistent. We've got 50 some episodes we want to get through in the next 52 weeks, which means more than one a week, slightly more than one a week. About one every 6 days is what we really need to adhere to in order to just keep that schedule. So that's what we're going to do our best to do. So let's jump in. Thanks again. By the way, if you can, I just want to mention it. Share this. Let other travelers know if they're interested. I've said this many times, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I know this, and I don't think anybody in the world is everybody's cup of tea. I would hope I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But if you like what I'm saying and you think there's some value to a constituent, a partner, a friend of yours, please share either the YouTube or the podcast that you listen to us or watch us on. We'd appreciate it. Again, the numbers are still just kind of consistently climbing. So every time we open up an episode, we gain some new audience based upon, I think, the title of that episode, what the topic is. And that's why we're trying to mix it up and go over a lot of different things. So, okay, let's jump in, because like I said just a few minutes ago, this is a really, really unique time in healthcare travel. In 22 and a half years, almost 23 years, I got in this industry in the fall of 99. Jeez. So it'll be 23 years if it isn't. I get confused. I think it's been 23 years. 22 and a half years, 23 years. And what's really weird is that we haven't seen much change, really, up until, January, February of 2020. This industry has just been a zombie, stagnant. Yeah, we've gone from, like I've said before, emailing to people actually getting phone calls. I'm old enough. This is going to blow a lot of you younger people away. It used to be an industry that you didn't call people because their cell phone had per minute charges. Some of you are going like this. Some of you are going, what? And so when you called somebody, you would really have a chance of making them upset if you were calling them. You're chewing up my minutes. And it was expensive to have cell phones. And you didn't know if you were calling a landline or a cell phone. We used to have 2 numbers for people. I mean, I've got, my home, I've got a home phone number I haven't used in probably 15 years. It's still there. But people had 2 numbers and you were hoping you were going to get the landline because you didn't want to upset them to get the phone. And then texting is another kind of new thing. Once, phones and calls became, again, I'm old enough to remember when it was like you can call anywhere for the same price and it doesn't cost you, it's free. Texting was the same way. You'd really make people upset if you texted them and they were, getting charged by the text, which was a thing For those of you that are older than 20 years old, I guess, or however old that long it's been. So I've seen those changes in the industry, but for the most part, this industry has not changed a bit. It's the same model. If you literally tear apart a huge company in one part of the country and go look at a smaller company in another part of the country, they're ran basically the same way. And I say company, I'm talking about agency. They're ran basically the exact same way. Hospitals treat travelers almost exactly the same right now as they did back, in 1999. I can't speak earlier than that, but that hasn't changed. This industry is just plodding along because it kind of works. I guess, is that an honest way to say? It works, in my opinion, but it's not working very well. It could work a lot better, and we're figuring out how to make that happen. It's like I said, it's 2022, and nobody in the industry is interested in moving the traveler ahead, in moving an agency ahead, because it really means you have to move an agency kind of backward, helping a facility out more, gaining more partnerships with them. But mostly for the traveler standpoint, this industry has remained, how do I sell a traveler, and how do I keep him or her interested in working for a company without them having an inkling or a thought about going to do the same assignment within our company? It is not a very transparent industry, to say the least. If you don't believe me, the next time you're on the phone with your recruiter, ask him or her, what's my bill rate for my current assignment, or what's the bill rate for this assignment I'm about ready to go to? And you will see the panic and hear the panic in their voice. And they will tell you, we are not allowed to tell you that. We can't tell you that. We're not allowed to tell you that. I can't tell. I'm not supposed to tell you. I'm not. Why? Why is that supposed to be hidden? Because you guys know you can get it from your manager. I had a gal the other day just said, here's what my bill rate is. Can you help me walk you through an assignment? Happens almost 4 to 5 times a week for me. So you guys are seeing that, but why wouldn't your agency be willing to let you know what it is that they're getting paid for hourly? And the answer is very clearly and simply because that means you would know how much they're making as long as you know the rest of the simple arithmetic on that equation. So that has not changed, in my opinion, since 1999. The idea is to keep you guys a little bit in the dark so that you hope that we're good people and you like your recruiter and you like your insurance and you like the assignments that the agency offers. And when you don't like one of those things, you go and you have your other agency that you may dabble with or you may date on the side. Who knows? But this industry is it's the same thing over and over and over again, and then breaks off and little other pods pop up, and it's exactly the same thing all over again. So weird times, and I do think changes are coming. I know changes are coming. Matter of fact, I can guarantee you they're coming. I will predict this. Let's say this is going to be released, I still think, in May of 2022, and here's my prediction. So we'll see if this lasts the test of time. 10 years from now, when someone's watching this, let's say 5 years from now, I believe in 5 years, the model of what is involved in an assignment from an agency standpoint, from a hospital standpoint, from a traveler standpoint, will look different in 5 years. It'll look different in 5 years. It'll be very different for the first time ever in what it's been up until right now. And many of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't have a clue, but it's coming. There are changes that are going to really help travelers, mostly financial, coming because it's time for sure. So let's talk about financial. For many of you, this is the reason why you started traveling. So I think we should jump into that one first and foremost, because you wanted to make more money than the average staff professional, whether it's allied or nursing. That was, for many of you, one of the compelling reasons why you decided you want to be a traveler. And you should not be ashamed of that. I don't know an industry in the world that people are afraid to say, I want to be highly compensated for what it is I do. I don't care if you are literally a painter, you're laying tile, you're a computer engineer, you're an RN, you're a salesperson. Anybody wants to be paid higher. But because you guys are taking care of healthcare and other people, there's this inbred feeling like I don't want to seem greedy, because it's not supposed to be about the money. It's supposed to be about patient care and being an advocate. And I believe you can absolutely do both. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And I actually think that if healthcare professionals were paid higher, more people would want to go into healthcare profession. They would want to be part of that. It's just a really weird and I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, healthcare is ran bizarrely in our country. It's almost backward. But anyway, this is probably why many of you decided you wanted to travel. I was interested in becoming, a rad tech. However, I wasn't making the kind of money, and I found this opportunity to be a traveling rad tech, and now all of a sudden I've increased my income by X amount. Maybe it was double for a while, but at least I can maybe say 20, 25, 30%. Maybe it's better than that, and it should hopefully remain to be better than that because of the sacrifices I'm willing to make. So for those of you that is either the main compelling reason or a huge part of why you want to travel, don't lose sight of that. You've got to keep that focus as part of your sanity. If this is going to be something you want to do, you have to justify it by saying, I need to make this kind of money, or at least I need to be this much higher than what the average staff healthcare professional is making in my part of the country where I'm from, or where I used to live, or where I still currently live. That's got to be important, and you got to refocus on that. So what does that mean? This is where I want to spend most of our time today. What that means is you've got to focus on the financial aspects of being a healthcare traveling professional. I've said it 100 times probably in the first 50 episodes, so I'm going to say it 300 or 400 more times in the next 2 or 3 seasons because this is the most important thing for you. You guys cannot blindly go in and trust that a recruiter who, let's be honest, you barely know or you don't know at all. I don't care if they're 25 years old or they're 55 years old. How does this person have your best interest in mind? And many of them might. Many of them might. I know that's going to sound really crazy to me, but many of them may actually have your best interest in mind. But they're also handcuffed by the rules and the margins of the agency in which they're employed by, which means you cannot put all your faith in that individual. You've got to have it yourself. You've got to understand everything about the numbers of our industry. And I've said it so many times, that has got to be one of your main focuses. You cannot just say, I'm going to be a traveling healthcare professional and I don't care about the numbers. I need to look at what makes sense to me and take the job based upon my own personal weekly gross or weekly net. I think you're crazy if that's the way you go into healthcare travel because you're potentially walking away from hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your career. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. You guys all know it. You tell me every week. Agencies have different margins. Agencies have different positions oftentimes. And a lot of times, the more positions a company has, the bigger they are. Oftentimes, the bigger their margin might be because they've got more and more personnel, more and more vice presidents walking around. I've said it many, many times. Handling 2,000 people a week for payroll on a weekly basis is really difficult. It requires more people. It's not just it's a sliding scale. More people to handle that same time frame because the deadline's the same. I don't know if that makes sense. But an agency that, let's say, has 200 people, it's not like you need 10 times as many people to handle the other 10 times as many travelers. You probably need a lot more than 10 times. You probably need 20 times as many people because it is a challenge to get that many timesheets into a payroll and processed and done effectively and efficiently and accurately every week. It's a challenge. And I can attest that as a company's growing quickly, that's a challenge, is to make sure that you've got that payroll personnel, you've got that credentialing personnel. All of that stuff is the same. So what I'm getting at is oftentimes there is justifiable reason, yes, you heard me say that correctly, that a large company has a bigger margin. Just part of our industry, right? That's just the way it is. If you want to go to work for a large, humongous type company, you're going to give away more of your piece of the pie to make sure that you're credentialed properly, to make sure you've got those a lot more opportunity based upon the account manager they have that are going out securing new contracts, that your pay is going to be done properly on time. I see a lot of people complaining on social media sometimes about the big companies about how their payroll was messed up for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. I'm going, man, it's kind of remarkable that they get it right more often than not with that many individuals floating around. It's actually, if you really think about it, it's actually really amazing that all the nuances and what I can tell you from my standpoint. I've never obviously been a CEO of a company that has, thousands and thousands of travelers out there. That's remarkable, and I'm going to give them a pat on the back for doing it right 99% of the time. But if money is important to you, And that's one of the reasons you started traveling in the first place. You've got to stay focused on that, which means learn the numbers, understand them, understand if you're getting a good deal or if you're getting a bad deal. And trust me, there are a lot of bad deals out there. You have the power now, especially being a travel evolved, trained traveler, to be able to decide, does this assignment make sense with this company, or does another assignment make sense with a different company that's going to pay me more? And only you, by the way, know the answer to that question. Because a lower paying position in the right destination, whether it's close to home or where someone that you really care about is, or a place you really want to go, that might make the perfect sense to you. And you have some recruiter chirping in your ear saying, oh, but it's all about the money or it's all about the location. Only you know what's best for you in your travel career. So I'll talk about that down the road here. But let's maximize that income. I don't care if it's not the number one reason why you're going on assignment. You should be maximizing your income on every single assignment. Don't have your career end in 10 years. You go, wow, I literally walked away from hundreds of thousands of dollars because I didn't educate myself on things like hours 36 to 40, as we've talked about, true overtime, what tax advantage really entails, what I'm allowed to take taxable, what I'm allowed to take tax-free, how all that works, how an agency bills for all those hours or they don't bill differently for all those hours. These are things that you need to understand in order to maximize that financial and that money portion. So how do you maximize income? Well, first of all, we'll talk about locations a little bit more in this episode, but you can maximize income by going to locations that not everybody wants to go to. We already know this. I don't care if we're talking about a brutally cold place in the winter or a place that has no, what's the word I'm looking for? Attractions or even attractiveness to the average person. A small, maybe not a small town's bad. That's the wrong way to put it. But a place where there's nothing in that town that derives a lot of interest from the average traveler, which means they're going to have a higher bill rate, which hopefully means your agency is going to be offering a higher pay rate. Locations has a huge amount to do with the kind of money you're going to make. And if you're focused, and the reason you started traveling in the first place was to make money, my point here on today's episode is don't get distracted by the wonderful beach or the mountains or the big city. Chase the dollars. Don't forget why you started traveling and get back to refocusing on why it was you traveled. So stay away from the places that don't pay just because you want to go there. I get it, but that's not why you want to travel. So that's why we're talking about the episode today about refocusing, right? Undesirable locations, again, there are hospitals that have bad reputations. I'm not going to name them here. You guys all know them. They've had bad reputations 20 years ago. They will probably have bad reputations 20 years from now. It's a lot to do with the culture, has a lot to do with the systems they're in, has a lot to do with the higher-ups that have been there forever, and just the way their organization has been ran. They're bad. They pay a lot because they're bad. You guys know the ones I'm talking about. If you don't, ask your fellow traveler to say, hey, where are some assignments that struggle with getting travelers to come back or to stay? And why is it? And can I put up with that kind of pain in order to focus on the money that was really important to me? And then lastly, I've said before, this is a no-brainer. Go with that assignment. If there's multiple agencies that have the assignment, shop it around. Go with the company that pays the most. And here's the thing I'll tell you. I can't think of many things that would make me more angry as a traveler than talking to my bestest buddy who, all day long, people are always telling me, oh, I love my recruiter. My recruiter's great. If you tell your recruiter the truth, don't mislead them, but if some other company is offering literally a few $100s a week, which sounds like nothing, but that could be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a year more for just that one assignment, tell them that. And if they come back and say, we can match it, I can't think of anything that would make me more angry at my buddy recruiter than saying, why did I have to have somebody else beat your price for you to give me more money, to give me a larger piece of that pie, simply because you didn't want to lose my business? Why didn't you do that in the first place? And again, these are the folks that people will swear, oh, they really care about me. Yeah, they do. But that would make me more mad than anything else. I would actually rather have a company say, I can't. Our margins are this way because we do this, this, and this, and try to justify it, why it is you're being paid less with them because of all the other wonderful reasons or things that they provide or bring to the table. That would make me less angry than someone who would just roll over and go, okay, we'll do it. Because that tells me that they had it there in the first place. And that bothers me more than anything else in our industry. It's been that way forever. But high-paying agencies is a great way to make more money and stay focused on the financial aspects of why you became a traveler. So shop around. And I've always said here, I don't know why you would take an assignment for literally hundreds of dollars less a week, no matter what the situation is, for the exact same thing. You're working at a hospital. It just happens to be the people that are paying you every week. If someone's paying you hundreds of dollars more and you're during your job, you communicate with them once a week. Here's my timesheet, and here's my, I need my insurance cards, and here's my paycheck. Great. That's it. $200 a week difference for the same exact thing makes no sense to me whatsoever. So that's the best way, in my opinion, to make sure once you've decided you've got the right location, you've got, multiple places that have that job, go with the company that's going to pay you the absolute highest. All right, let's talk about locations for a minute, because I think locations is just as important for many of you, if not more important, for a lot of you than money. I think money's become, the most important thing, and I think I beat that up enough. But locations are, I think, if you combine it, especially if you combine it with the amount of money you guys are making at certain places, it does have a huge bearing on why so many of you have decided to become a healthcare traveling professional. So here's what I want to say about locations. If there's certain parts of the country that you really want to go to, that you want to go back to, and money is less important than where you want to be, for whatever reason that is, please don't let a recruiter talk you out of it. And I hate to, again, this feels like the beat up recruiter episode, but it's true. A lot of people get distracted from why they're traveling because of good salesmanship or strong salesmanship, for lack of using the right adjective. You can get talked out of positions. You don't want to go to Honolulu, Hawaii. You want to go to Waikiki, or you want to go to the Big Island or something else. You want to go to Hilo. And you don't. You want to go to Honolulu. I do that every episode, and there it was. If a recruiter doesn't have a job in your specialty at that facility in that city, he or she is going to try to talk you into a different location. That's just what they're going to do. Oh, you don't really want to do PACU in Honolulu. You want to do PACU in Hilo. Or you don't even want to go to the islands in general because there's so much better assignments right in Southern California, wherever the situation is. You gotta be aware of that salesmanship. Don't let good salespeople or strong salespeople talk you out of your destination. Stick to your guns. If you want to be in a certain part of the country, stay in that part and find an assignment that is going to be close. If one company doesn't have it, see if you can see it listed on all these different places where you can see sites and see jobs, and find the company that has it. And if it just so happens that that specialty is not being offered when you're ready, put it in the back burner, go back to it every time you have an opportunity to, and see if you can get your specialty and get that puzzle piece to kind of hook up and fit. What I'm getting at is that I see this all the time, and I hear this because I talk to so many of you. Well, I got kind of talked out of that, and I got talked into this job. That's what you guys will say. I got talked into it. And I think that's, well, that really bothers me, that somebody would, I think, put their commission, put what they have available higher than where you want to go. It's the world we live in. It's no different than a car salesman talking you into a certain, model or brand that you have no interest in because there's a good deal, or they got a great lease going, or a great purchase option, whatever it is. We're all suckers to that. I'm not faulting anyone for doing it, but it's just part of our industry, and you guys should recognize that. If your reason for wanting to be a traveler was to go to certain places in the country or to have that flexibility, don't forget that, and don't let somebody else interfere with what your career objectives were. And that's what I think happens so often in our industry right now. It kind of goes along the same lines as adventure. Now, I have a guest who's a friend of mine who's going to come on, and we're going to do an episode about adventure. And you know who you are, and you keep dodging me, and we're going to get you on here. So anyway, that's part of it too. There's no difference between saying I really want to go to certain places in the country because of the adventure that I'm seeking, and have that be talked out of you because of, well, this one's paying really well, or this one's doing it, this one is a a better location, or there's so many positions here that you can be guaranteed to get a position. I think with travel healthcare, what I'm getting at is you guys have got to stick with your guns. You have to go back and right now, each one of you has to think about, why did I do this? Why did I decide to either leave my permanent staff position or this was something I always wanted to do? And what is the reasons behind that? What was my motivation? Has that changed? It's okay if things have changed, by the way. If your motivation originally was money and now it's because you really want to find your next permanent home, or you want to, just really explore some parts of the country, you want to spend time in places that you've enjoyed in the past part of your travel career, you can have your stuff change, but be true to what it is that really motivates you. Like I've said so many times before, you guys have such a unique career. Most people don't get to, and you may think this is not a blessing, but it really is. Most people don't get to change their surroundings, the people they work with, their location, potentially every 13 weeks if they want to. And you guys have that option, which, again, I know there's lots of competition. Sometimes it's not as easy. Sometimes you're fighting for position. But for the most part, you wouldn't be sticking with being a traveler if you were unsuccessful at being a traveler. There's a lot of people that aren't in that boat right now that have gotten back out already, and more coming. But if you're good at this, don't be talked out of what it is that really drives you by outside influences, whether it's family, friends, your agency, other travelers that have, are going to try to give you their 2 cents worth. This is your career. I say it all the time, and it's something that you guys have to remember. You're the one. And by the way, I don't mean to offend those of you that do. There are a lot of travelers that are like, no, I'm in charge. I love you guys for that because that's the way it should be. You guys are in demand. Obviously, you can see that there are companies and agencies that are climbing over themselves and each other to get your business and to earn your business and to hopefully keep your business, which this is a business. So you're the one who's in control. And please don't forget that. You don't have to settle for subpar pay, for subpar locations, for subpar anything, because there's another company right around the corner that's going to give you those things without having to settle for anything. And more, by the way, are going to start to elevate, I think, a lot of different aspects of what makes an assignment great for you. Okay, so let's talk about that. Many of you left a permanent situation because of the toxicity or our politics of where you currently are at. Either you didn't like it or you didn't like it in general, and you don't like having to be attached to a unit, a department manager, a facility philosophy for a very long period of time. You love that change. You love that flexibility. There's not a lot to say about it in this episode. Just don't get stuck in one of those places then. If you see that toxicity, you see that political environment that you don't like, or the cattiness of the unit, or the what's the word I'm looking for? The jealousy sometimes that goes along with some units for a traveler that's making a lot of money. Get out of there. Go someplace else. Leave with a strong note. Leave with your head held high. Do not shortchange yourself. Don't get short timer's disease. Leave strong and put it to your rearview mirror and move on to the next best adventure you're going to have. Get to see part of the country. Let's kind of pause for a minute. This episode, the focus here is to not lose focus of your true reason for traveling. So I've said many times before, I absolutely believe that every traveler has their own unique set of circumstances as to why they're traveling and what motivates them from traveling. And for most of you guys, it's not just one thing. It's a combination of a lot of things, and there's priorities and hierarchies of those things. And I do believe that those priorities and the hierarchies do ebb and flow and change for many of you. If you have a really high-paying assignment, let's be frank, the next assignment may be more based upon where you really want to go location-wise, right? After you've had a couple of really low-paying assignments, you may be pretty money-motivated in your next one. There's nothing wrong with that. So remember that this whole point is for two things. Don't get burned out. We did a whole episode about being burnt out. And I do think that refocusing on why you started traveling is a great way to kind of keep yourself from getting burned out. If you're stuck in a rut, here's an example. If you're just chasing money And maybe that wasn't why you got into traveling in the first place, but you've been paying off some great bills. It's been wonderful. And you're finding yourself right now unhappy because the last 3 or 4 assignments you've taken have been financially driven, and they really haven't hit it on all 4 cylinders in every other aspect of it. And you're finding yourself miserable. Look in the mirror and say, maybe this next assignment really should be about something for me. Where do I want to go? And less about the money, less about, what I'm looking for. And I really need to not get burnout, because if I keep this pace up, and we've seen this, I'm going to end up being an undesirable traveler. I'm an undesirable employee for the agency, for the facility, for myself, for my family, and that doesn't help anybody. So a lot of refocusing on why you started traveling in the first place is to get those batteries recharged again. I want you to really analyze what it is that you're traveling for right now and see if that is still in alignment with what it was that made you want to do this in the first place. If it is, great. Go for it. Become smarter, become better, become more educated, become more savvy. Evolve your travel game so that you're really, really good at this career that you've chosen for yourself. If there's an issue where it has changed and you're not recognizing it, then this is a great opportunity to, in fact, go ahead and recognize it. Lastly, on this episode, I want to ask you guys one question, and that is, what do you want to get out of travel now? And I think it's a really pertinent question to ask at this particular juncture, because let's talk about what's happening. Rates are dropping. There is a huge amount of competition, and there will be for a while until it weeds itself out. Supply and demand in the market in our country has a way of naturally healing itself and fixing itself. We all know that there will be travelers who can't get positions that will be forced to have to stop traveling and go back and get insurance and get a permanent gig. There are going to be travelers that don't want to do this anymore for this kind of pay, which means that for those of you that do, there's going to be good, solid opportunities for you. But my question for you on today's episode to kind of finish is that, what do you want to get out of travel now? Now that things are starting to, I guess, become a little like they were before. And I don't think they're going to go back the way they always were before, but let's just admit that they're a little more like they were 3 years ago, with just a lot more higher pay rates, but crazy competition in what I'm seeing. What do you want to do the next 2 to 3 years with your career? Do you want to focus on money? Do you want to, go to some places that heal you and make you feel good when, you're not working? Do you want to go back to facilities that you really enjoyed or that have great reputations? Do you want to meet up with some other travel buddies and enjoy your full, work life quality that they say? So you're having fun out of work, inside of work, the whole kit and caboodle. What is it you want to get out of travel nursing in the next, let's say, couple of years? And focus on that. Go back and listen to some episodes. We're going to be focusing a whole ton, by the way, in the next, especially the next few months, on how to help you get the positions from people that aren't watching and listening to Travel Evolved. How to get on that top of that stack, and how to secure the interview, how to be a great traveler. That's like last week's episode with Steve. All of this stuff is aimed at helping you guys do a better job and be better and be happier. You guys have all heard the phrase, be a happy traveler. I think that if you've got your travel game down pat, and it is, so to speak, a game, if all aspects of what you do in travel are really clicking, I think you're going to have a really amazing next couple of years. I think it's going to be a lot better than it was in, from 2015 to 2019, when things were just kind of stagnant and rates were kind of and agencies were getting greedier and travelers were making less and less money. I think things are going to be really awesome for you guys, those that stick around and can fight through and battle and, secure those contracts above their competition. It's going to be a heck of a couple of great years for you, that's for sure, and hopefully longer than that. So, guys, as always, I appreciate it. This was kind of a fun one. I know it was a little bit all over the place, and I beat up on the recruiting aspect of it, but it's important. It's really important that you don't lose sight of who is in charge. You guys are. Don't forget it. I'll catch you next time on Travel Evolved.